welcome to Politically Unstable with Charles Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor. I'm your host, Andy Parks, and I'd like to remind you that you qualify for a 50% discount on an annual digital subscription to the Washington Times simply by going to washingtontimes.com/Andy. That's washingtontimes.com/ANDY. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Washington Times opinion editor Charlie Hurt. Hello, Charlie.
Hey, Andy. How's it going, buddy?
Just fine, thank you. I read your column, Congress's classical narcissist fret as the Trump train rolls on. Despite what the establishment Republicans want, as you say, Donald Trump will not go quietly into the night.
No, did you see his rally in Iowa? I mean, the guy is he is on a plum roll, and there is no stopping him. And, it's interesting. I personally wish that he would spend more time talking about the issues and all of the things that Joe Biden is doing wrong. But of course, he is like a dog. He's always been like this. He's a dog with a bone. He won't let the election stuff go. And while, for a lot of people in Washington, this gives people the vapors and they get all upset about it because you're not supposed to talk about these things and you get cut off of Twitter and all this kind of stuff. But it's like the perfect thing for him. It's like catnip. He loves to talk about the things that no one is allowed to talk about. And that is his greatest strength. And obviously, it presents problems for people in Washington, and they get really uncomfortable with it, and it causes problems for people in the media. But outside of media circles and Washington circles, it might be a little boring to people who would rather hear about other things. But it's certainly not anything that undermines him or hurts his credibility. Quite the opposite. It's something that very much advances his credibility and, deepens his credibility with people.
It's so funny. I've seen so many politicians in Washington, so many GOPers say, well, he won't be a factor in 2024. I beg to differ.
Yeah, in their dreams, they would give anything for him to go away. And it's so funny that, they sit around and they go, well, he was right about all these things, but he's a problematic messenger. He's not the best messenger. Really? Because he was the only messenger. For 30 years, you people have been ignoring all these issues, and now you want to take his issues away from him and say, oh, but he's a problematic messenger? No, that's not how the game works. I mean, if you have screwed something up and you have neglected something for 30 years, you don't get to then turn around and say, okay, we'll handle it from here. No, you haven't handled it. And there is no hope whatsoever that you could handle it going into the future. And the more that comes out every day, revealing how fraudulent, how dishonest, how despicable people in Washington were towards Donald Trump, all of that stuff comes out. And it reminds people not only how disgusting those people are, and they are truly disgusting, but also just what a tough customer Trump is, that he managed to battle through all of that stuff and really, for the most part, was able to stay focused on getting a lot done. Obviously, he could have gotten a lot more done if he didn't have 2 impeachments and all the other nonsense hanging over his head the entire time. You got to be a tough SOB to do what Donald Trump did.
I agree. I want to take you down a different path if I can for a second. You and I have talked about people like Mitch McConnell for a long time. In my mind, this guy, I don't know, he does things that drive me crazy. Now, I know you say, he reaches across the aisle and he gets a lot done, but he folds up and the Democrats play hardball and the Republicans play softball now.
Yeah, I don't mean to ever applaud McConnell for reaching across the aisle, and I don't actually think that is ever kind of what he is doing. What I do admire about him, though, is he is a very smart tactician in the strange place that is the United States Senate, which is not your normal battleground. And we have a lot of good things in this country today that we would not have if not for Mitch McConnell. Merrick Garland would be on the Supreme Court today if it were not for Mitch McConnell, because McConnell is a seasoned, wily, very shrewd operator in the Senate, and he knows the Senate better than anybody else. And a good example, quote unquote, deal that he's made with Democrats in the Senate over kicking the debt ceiling down the road. we can sit there and say, I don't know what all Republicans have lost in doing that. Here's where I think it's a very shrewd move. Republicans have a very good hand right now. But I think after the November elections, mainly talking about Virginia, which has those off-year elections, we have 3 statewide constitutional officers are up for election. McConnell is gauging that he thinks that Republicans will have an even stronger hand come December. And that's why I think he made that decision. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But if Republicans manage to win in a blue state like Virginia in this atmosphere, and it's not just a blue state, it's a blue state where Donald Trump is like kryptonite to the state of Virginia in terms of trying to get a Republican to win there. And Terry McAuliffe is doing all he can to slime Glenn Youngkin as a acolyte of Trump. If Glenn Youngkin can inoculate all of that and get elected, beat a Democrat in a Democratic state, that is going to be huge. And it is going to change all the dynamics on Capitol Hill, because every single legislator on Capitol Hill, a third of the Senate and the entire House, is going to be sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this is what I have to face. This is the wrath of voters under Biden that I'm going to be facing next year. And suddenly McConnell is banking that he's going to get a much better deal in December than he would today. And I think that that's probably pretty shrewd gamesmanship right there.
Well, I sure hope you're right. I want to take you to one other thing before we run today. D.C. Democrats dispatch bulldozers on unhoused neighborhoods. I guess they didn't want the folks across America to see this, huh?
It's incredible. It's a wonderful glimpse into sort of the liberal mind of Democrats who run cities. The situation here is, we have these homeless encampments all over the city, and they're disgusting, they're despicable. They never should have been allowed to go up in the first place. But because of Democrat policies going back decades, this is just commonplace. And it's gotten so much worse over the past year, as you know, under bridges, around the Capitol, everywhere. And they're just allowed to keep these encampments up. But now that they're, even Democrats are like, okay, we can't have this anymore. They're disgusting. And they're trying to take some of them down. They're using bulldozers to clear them out. The problem is they're not getting people out of their tents before they bulldoze them.
I know.
And if you want a perfect encapsulation of the way Democrats think, they like to preach about humanity and preach about compassion, but when it comes to getting something done, bring in the bulldozers and let's bulldoze the homeless people up with their tents. And it wasn't until this screaming that somebody luckily hears it and stops the operation, and the guy gets sent to the hospital. These people don't believe in consequences. They don't understand consequences, but these are the consequences, precise reason why Democrats and Democrat policies have destroyed just about every American city in modern times here.
Folks, you can read all of Charlie Hurt's stories at WashingtonTimes.com. Out of time for this week. We'll do it next week. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks for listening to Politically Unstable with Charlie Hurt. Remember, as I said, you can read all of Charlie's columns at WashingtonTimes.com. And while you're there, check out our great selection of podcasts. I'm Andy Parks. Have a great day.